Hi, I'm Dave Bloom, CEO of SnackSafely.com, and I'm coming to you today because the food allergy community got a bit of bad news. A brand new emergency epinephrine device called Neffy by ARS Pharma, which we fully expected would gain FDA approval yesterday, was in fact denied approval by the FDA. We're getting tons of questions, so I thought I would come online, tell you a little bit about Neffy, how we got to this point, and talk about the future of the device. So let's talk about Neffy first. What is it? Neffy is, as I mentioned, an emergency epinephrine device. It's different from the standard auto-injector in that with the auto-injector, when you're experiencing anaphylaxis, you would stab yourself in the thigh, whereas with a Neffy, you would pull out the device and spray it up your nose. The epinephrine that gets delivered into your nasal membranes gets absorbed, winds up in your bloodstream, and works similarly to an epinephrine auto-injector in terms of how quickly it's absorbed and the concentrations with which it's absorbed into your bloodstream. So ARS Pharma has done tons of testing there, provided all that information to the FDA. The FDA in May decided that they would convene a panel of experts, and they asked the panel, based on all this data provided by ARS, would you approve this drug? And the panel voted 16-6 to approve use of the drug in adults and 17-5 to approve use of the device in children. Now, what makes Neffy so important? Well, as you probably know, many folks have a fear of the needle. Many kids, many adults. I am the father of a daughter, now a grown woman, 22 years old, who was diagnosed with severe food allergies at 1. And my family knows a little bit about fear of the needle, as I'm sure yours does too. Well, Neffy would obviate the need for a needle. And so because it's just a nasal spritz up the nose, it would be much more likely for people with the fear of the needle to use the device earlier during anaphylaxis and would provide better outcomes. So that's the idea, and that's why we were very hopeful it would be approved yesterday. But what happened? Why wasn't Neffy approved? Well, to understand that, we've got to go back a little ways. After the panel voted that the FDA should approve Neffy, on June 12th, a company called Viatris issued what's known as a citizen's petition to the FDA. And in that petition, they basically said, now hold on, we think you should demand much more data from the folks at ARS before you approve Neffy. Who's Viatris? Why would they throw a wrench into the works? Well, you may not know the name Viatris, but you certainly know the name of one of their subsidiaries called Mylan. And Mylan markets EpiPen, which basically has the lion's share of the epinephrine auto-injector market. And if a new entrant that was needle-free were to enter the market, it would mean likely that EpiPen would lose significant market share, meaning Viatris would lose tens of millions of dollars. And so it was in their best interest to, as I said, throw a wrench into the works and delay the approval of Neffy as long as possible. So what did they say in their citizens petition? Well, they basically said, FDA, you really should have more information about repeat dosing. So let's talk a little bit about repeat dosing. What is it? If you carry an epinephrine auto-injector, if you've been prescribed one, I hope you carry 2 at all times. But if you've been prescribed epinephrine, you know that if you suspect anaphylaxis, you immediately administer your first auto-injector. And if after a few minutes, it doesn't stop the progression of anaphylaxis, you're supposed to administer the second one. And the folks at ARS Pharma knew this, so they did repeat dosing tests, and they found that, again, Neffy worked pretty much the same way epinephrine autoinjectors did and provided the same concentrations on repeat dosing. But the folks at Viatris basically said, well, we want to see this data if the person who's repeat dosing has congestion, has a stuffy nose. Now, ARS Pharma knew that this would be an issue. So when they did their testing, they did significant testing on individuals with severe congestion. And what they found was, since the goal is not to inhale the epinephrine, Neffy delivers the epinephrine to the nasal passages, which in congestion are inflamed. And the company reports that when you're congested, the epinephrine actually gets absorbed better than under normal circumstances. So they did the repeat dosing testing, they did the congestion testing. The one thing they didn't do was repeat dosage testing with congestion. And so Viatris managed to suggest that particular test be required, and the FDA followed suit, presumably, and now is requiring ARS Pharma to provide that testing data. Now, what does ARS Pharma intend to do? First, they intend to appeal the decision. I don't know how much luck they'll have with the FDA in appealing, but they've already committed to doing the additional testing in the first half of 2024, with the hope that with the additional data, they would get approval next year in the second half of the year. So that's where we stand now. Now, I've never been shy about voicing my opinions, so I'll go on the record here. As readers of our blog, SnackSafely.com, know, I'm not a fan of the FDA. I think they've dropped the ball repeatedly over allergen labeling on food products, and there's a lot more I don't like about the administration and how it operates. I'm also not a fan of Viatris/Mylan/EpiPen. What they've done over the last decade and a half in hiking the price of epinephrine to unaffordable levels is truly evil. And again, in my opinion, I believe that this very important tool in the fight against anaphylaxis is being delayed due to corporate greed. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you'll follow us on SnackSafely.com. If you're interested in the epinephrine market and new innovations in terms of epinephrine delivery, you should be following us. If you're interested in learning more about allergy-friendly food products, you should be following us. If you're interested in school policies, legislation, really anything that has to do with food allergies, follow us. Thanks again for your time.